Hey everyone, we're pleased to announce that this episode of the 84 Million Podcast is brought to you by our friends at Luxfolio. Inspired by Bitcoin's success as a corporate treasury asset, the team at Luxfolio is pioneering the Litecoin treasury strategy as the very first publicly traded Litecoin treasury company. Confident in Litecoin as a hard, scarce, and sound digital currency, Luxfolio is proving that digital silver is now institutional grade. With a robust Litecoin balance sheet, Luxfolio is committed to actively supporting the Litecoin ecosystem, collaborating with developers, miners, media, and others, promoting further Litecoin adoption. Luxfolio is setting the standard for Litecoin adoption at the corporate level. Learn more at luxfolio.com, luxfolio.com. When it comes to mining, pools matter. This is why we recommend POWERPOOL. POWERPOOL is a mining pool built by miners to maximize profits. If you're mining from home or have a larger scaled operation, use POWERPOOL for the best payouts. POWERPOOL supports SHA-256, X11, Blake 2S, EagleSong, K-Heavy Hash, and of course our favorite, S-CRYPT for Litecoin, Dogecoin, Bellscoin, and others. Mining with POWERPOOL is easy with its simple user interface, and the platform has all the reporting exports that you're looking for. PowerPool typically charges a 1% fee, but if you use the 84 million link in the show notes, you will pay less than 1%, which is excellent. So sign up, point your machines, and start mining with PowerPool for lower fees and better payouts. Cheers, happy mining. Hello and welcome to the 84 Million Podcast. Today we're on episode number 48 and we have a special guest with us today. We're glad to have him here, Aztec Amaya. So welcome to the show, sir. Let me give you an introduction. Aztec Amaya is CSO at Lunar Assets, co-host of the Aggregated, and is a co-founder of LitVM. I think that's a pretty brief introduction, so I wasn't sure if you wanted to add anything to that.
That's pretty much it right there. I mean, I wear a lot of hats, but that's the main thing I'm focused on. And thank you so much, Kyle, for letting me chop it up with you here today.
Glad to have you here. Glad to talk about your research. We're going to get there. We're going to talk. I think, I was thinking about this when I was kind of thinking about the show before we started, and I think about my guests and where do we want to go, and we're going to wear this as a loose garment. This is not a lecture or a presentation or anything, but I do want to talk about your research. But sometimes, I think we could just go off your tweets and just talk about your tweets and have fun with that. But we'll probably mix a little bit of that in because you've been very active on X. So maybe some current events here. We saw you were, what did I say? You were up in San Francisco. Okay. I think we saw you with our immediately past guest, Mihao. You were in a room with him and Kara working on stuff. We saw a picture of you and the great Charlie Lee at a restaurant, I want to say. And you were on a boat in the Golden Gate on the water, kind of an aged boat, and you were evangelizing about Litecoin. So what have you been up to?
Definitely. It's been a blur. Our team has been networking, talking to various partners, traveling all around the world. Half our team was in Asia. I went to California recently, and it was an honor to meet Charlie. So first off, I'll say that. And we actually had a really great discussion, and there's some information that will come out of that discussion later on. But we've just been busy, cross between development, networking, finalizing raise, and meeting builders, other builders that want to collaborate with us and build the hard money Web3 rebellion.
And we want to talk about that today. Before we dive into the topic, can you tell us a little bit about you? I mean, you were at the Litecoin Summit, were you not?
I was.
Your team was. You weren't on stage, although I thought you were. But I know we met. We had to have met there. I know I met Rock and some of your other team. I know Yago was there. He was a guest about 2 months ago now or whatever. an amazing presentation where you kind of unleashed this idea of LitVM, I want to say for the first time publicly, or at least in a very big way. But I don't know you well. I know your tweets, and we don't have to dox anybody here. That's not the point. But tell us a little bit about you, maybe what brought you to crypto, what projects have you worked on, and what brought you to Litecoin?
Sure. Yeah, thank you. So what got me into crypto? The first thing was I was into gold and silver, uh, stacking physical gold and silver. And I've always liked like survival stuff and camping. And I don't know who it was exactly, but I was reading articles and, on YouTube. And that's how I found Litecoin and Bitcoin early on back in 2016. And that's where everything started for me. And then just like everyone else, you go down the rabbit hole, you learn about decentralization and opting out of, the system. And obviously that was extremely exciting for me. And so started off with Litecoin. That was my first coin. And I kind of went through this progression, learning about crypto and diving deeper and deeper. And, I think it was like the 2017 time. It's when John McAfee was really loud and he was still alive. I really liked him, and I love that he stood up for privacy. And I that's when I started learning more about privacy and how things are not as private as, we wish they were. And, just it being a human right. And so, off the back of learning about decentralization, I started learning about privacy, diving into privacy coins, and later on kind of getting into like Cardano, Ethereum, so these smart contracts. And over time, got into crypto full time, building, incubating projects. And as the technology has matured and being on the forefront of that, and being able to see all these builders and developers take us to the next level, it's kind of come full circle for me with Litecoin, where I started with Litecoin, started learning about a bunch of other technologies. And then as Bitcoin started developing, like runes and ordinals, and people started trying to build smart contracts and different trustless technologies, I saw that Litecoin, had a massive opportunity. And I could talk more about that later, but, it basically led me back to where I started. And so I'm still, really interested in Litecoin and building for Litecoin now. But about me, that's how I got into crypto. And at the time I was in the medical field as a respiratory therapist. And I actually, just to share a little bit about myself, before I went full-time crypto, I actually served in New Jersey and in New York as a respiratory therapist during all the COVID era. And that's what kind of led me to, I had done well in crypto, and I was like, I really want to start focusing more and, incubating these projects. And I needed, something different to do. And so I just went all in. And instead of just investing, I went and also started building.
Good deal. That's interesting. Dr. Kapil was on the show. He knows how to assist people in their health over in England, and now we can add you to the list, helping people breathe during COVID. Tremendous. You're doing CPAPs and BiPAPs and ventilators. I don't know if you were in the ICU, but either way, a lot of stuff going on in that time for sure. Good deal, man. I appreciate you sharing that. I think I can identify with I always say, Litecoin was the first cryptocurrency I ignored, right? It was Bitcoin and then Litecoin. Okay, cool. And then I kind of leave the space and then come back. And then, I end up back kind of where I started. And without going too close to the paper, and I do want to talk about your research, it seems like that's kind of the point, kind of the return to the so-called dino coins, because they're a little bit different than most of the other coins around. And again, we'll talk about your research. Maybe a little bit about LitVM. I know Rock is not with us. I plan to get you back with him, and I know maybe we'll do that close to launch. We'll work something out. But seeing that this paper is fresh, we wanted to get you on sooner. But with that being said, with a more full, more robust LitVM episode in the future, God willing, I do want to address it to a degree, right? So that's a big thing you're working on. I think everybody in the community is really excited about what you're doing. And more will be revealed in so many ways, right? And this is just this research is kind of a little tip of where we might be going. But I think of Litecoin often. Of course, we think of the Bitcoin Litecoin relationship or complementaryism. But you mentioned recently about kind of Ethereum and Litecoin going into this digital age, and obviously Ethereum is a giant project and changed to a degree over the years. But how do you see Litecoin and Ethereum working together going forward in time in the so-called digital age, as you said?
Sure. So what I see is that institutions, digital asset treasuries, funds, governments, what they're looking for is trustless ways or ways to accumulate these blue chip assets. And what LitVM does is we've looked at all the blue chip assets, and we've identified that Litecoin, and shout out to 84 million shop wearing my Litecoin shirt here, but Litecoin is the blue chip asset, the legacy coin that's going to grow the most, with all of these large entities coming in and stacking these blue chip assets. And specifically, we think that Litecoin will be very useful, and that these entities are going to want to build strategies on top of Litecoin. Now, currently, if you look at Litecoin, you mainly can send and receive, and there's some really great technologies that are building for Litecoin, and there's some centralized solutions that provide strategies, but it's a cross between trust minimize and fully trusting some kind of custodial service currently for the most part. So what we're doing essentially is giving programmability to Litecoin. It's what LitVM does. So just think, in the future with LitVM, you can do anything that you can do in Web3, but with Litecoin. So we'll have a focus on building out the DeFi layer for Litecoin. So anything in the DeFi suite will be available. Also extending all the great work on the payment side, just more advanced payments, real world assets that are enabled by Litecoin. So we can disrupt different types of categories like music or collectibles, real estate, etc., in this real world asset space. And additionally, we can take runes and ordinals to the next level with, better UI and the different types of solutions that you see natively in Web3, and that will all be available on in LitVM. So essentially, we're just giving programmability to Litecoin, and the goal is to do that in a trustless manner. So instead of relying on some type of vault or custodial type service or trust minimized type service, you're able to do that totally trustless. You own your Litecoin, you participate in Web3 in a robust and secure way.
Got it. And I would think many people think of Web3 and think about Ethereum, right? And some of the other chains out there. But you're seeing Litecoin is playing a very pivotal role, particularly. I mean, clearly it's the Litecoin virtual machine. You've chosen Litecoin to build on. To go into the future, it's not going to just be Ethereum. It's going to be Ethereum, Litecoin. And again, as you talk about the poly chain, is that the right language? I don't think I'm using the language. You're using the Polygon, but there is the Omni chain. That's what I'm looking for, Omni chaining. So where you have multiple kind of interconnected collaborative chains through LitVM and what you're building there.
Yeah, totally. So the thing is to bring programmability to Litecoin, we're essentially connecting Litecoin to Ethereum and the EVM, kind of the Ethereum virtual machine, and essentially at the application level. So we're building on top of Litecoin and our platform. The way I kind of explain it is, think of our platform LitVM as like a smartphone, and on your smartphone you have all these applications. So you could kind of think of LitVM as the smartphone, and then we're going to have all these decentralized applications built on top. Now, to do that, you have to use Ethereum, and on the omni-chain side of things, what that really means is that you're able to connect Litecoin, Ethereum, and connect LitVM specifically, which is kind of like the Ethereum Litecoin technology, into the rest of Web3, so that you can have cross-chain type strategies, and essentially you're unifying that Litecoin liquidity with the rest of Web3. And that can actually be platforms even outside of Ethereum, for instance, anything else that has smart contracts. So maybe there's a solution where you have Litecoin, trustless Litecoin, you bring it onto LitVM. And so that's kind of at the application layer, you start interacting with Ethereum dApps that enable you to do some type of cross-chain type strategy where you're kind of looping between Ethereum, maybe Avalanche or Cardano or Solana, just Web3 in general. And that's the omni-chain part of the equation.
Tell us about Web3. It's not new. I'm not so degen, to be honest. Any NFT stuff I've did, it was late. I didn't get into it intentionally, just because I'm kind of older school. But tell us about why it's already changed the world on other chains, and why just Litecoin accessing this or building on Litecoin within this environment. I don't know if I'm articulating that properly, but why is it not going? Why is it important, even if you're not interested in it? And I think most people are. I'm the anomaly, right? Especially people younger than me. But what is the reason for Web3 and all of this entire ecosystem? Like, where is it taking us?
So Web3 is the canvas that enables developers to paint whatever type of solution that they can dream up. They can use code, magical internet, code to create some type of solution that enables them to trade their Litecoin privately, or in any other asset, and or maybe speculate on it in different ways with NFTs, or different types of trading solutions. And so basically Web3 has been so impactful because there's a ton of different categories, whether it's gaming or storage, DeFi, real world assets, DeSci, which is something I'm really interested in because of the decentralized science, the medical stuff that's being done in a decentralized fashion with the decentralized community. There's all these different categories and all these solutions that can be utilized in the Web3 world. So it's become so impactful because it's disrupted a lot of categories, and it's also fun. In some cases, some people find NFTs, speculating on NFTs, interesting, and fun, and there's all kinds of interesting things you can do with NFTs. But basically, it just adds a whole new element of things that you can do with decentralized technologies. And for Litecoin, it's really important because you can now create new solutions that enable Litecoin with more demand. So if you have, for instance, if you have a decentralized suite of solutions that Litecoin can trustlessly interact with, now all these large entities that are starting to stack Litecoin can build strategies on top of this decentralized platform and gain yield, and create Litecoin sinks, and essentially just create new ways of either, having more use cases and utility for Litecoin. But I'll be the first one to say it's totally okay if all you want to do is send your Litecoin to cold storage and just save it for the future, or spend and save for the future.
Yeah, we've seen kind of the programmability of Litecoin. Again, runes, ordinals. We did have Clemens Lay on the show. I know he was with the Bitcoin computer and the Litecoin computer. Of course, you guys are doing big things, but it's just that programmability side. It's the non-monetary use of Litecoin, but it's really an unlimited world, because you can basically put anything on top of the chain, and it's kind of wild. So I'm not building on it. I'm going to watch it happen, and I'll probably use some of it, maybe tinker a little bit, but I'm excited to see what happens. And maybe we're using applications we have no idea that it was actually, built on LitVM or through LitVM, but maybe that's not the point, right? It's called expanding the use case of Litecoin beyond simply money, good money, sound money, right? So maybe that's the segue. Sound money. You talked about the silver standard. So this is your research. I'm going to show it to everybody who's watching. So LitVM, the silver standard, the case for crypto's most undervalued legacy coin, co-authored by Aztec Amaya and Alexander Shipp. So kind of tell us what led you to put this thing together, and why does Litecoin need research?
Definitely. And shout out to Alex. He's a really good friend of mine, an OG in the space. He is definitely wants to be more in the shadows and working, strategizing, building, but we put our brains together. So the silver standard is really both of us coming together and telling a story. And essentially, I'm including my thesis for Litecoin, all the things I've learned over the years for Litecoin, but also I've done some market research and included that in the back end of the paper. It's basically, you could kind of say there's three main parts. And the first part is the story and the thesis, and essentially how the blockchain thesis is really changing. And if you look at past cycles, you could pretty much, in some cases, launch anything. You could have a white paper. If you're looking all the way back at the 2017 ICO craze, there was a ton of white papers and technologies that really never made it anywhere. Nowadays, though, we've definitely matured as an industry, and the entities, the players that are coming in are definitely, traditional type players. So, your institutions and these digital asset treasuries, these guys are also a lot of finance bros, the big funds that are coming in, and especially governments. These guys are very serious players, and they're not looking for, the most degen meme coin or the next simple white paper. They're looking for assets that they can trust, that have a long history. And so essentially the thesis that the first part kind of gets into is just that the space has matured, and the blue chip assets or legacy coins are what are going to receive the next, I guess you could say, the bulk of the inflows that are coming to take us to the next level. Whether you like institutions or not, these guys are coming in, and that's the money that's really going to take us to the next level and bring in probably the next speculative wave as well. So that's the first part of it. It's mainly just kind of telling the story how, proof of work assets, legacy coins got to this point, and how, the space has matured. The second part is honing in to these legacy coins, and we're identifying exactly why Litecoin is our choice for being the number one asset that we think is going to grow out of all these legacy coins. And we have this kind of general model where we're looking at the integrity, utility, the tech, and the resilience of Litecoin specifically, and we outline, some of the things that we've looked into and researched. And then the last part of the paper is really diving deep into why LitVM is so important. We have a little bit of market research in there. And one thing I'd like to highlight about what we found out is that when we look at Web3 as a whole, we noticed that a lot of these ecosystems are building for either wrapped assets or stable coins. And I do think that there's a big need for, these solutions and these platforms to build out for these types of assets. And, especially on the institutional side, stable coins are going to be a really big thing. And part of that story is kind of scary, in my opinion. But regardless, these assets are what are mainly being built out for. But when you start talking to blockchainers, even the people that recently onboarded through memes and they made some money, as they get serious, or if they've been in the space for a while, people want to preserve their wealth, and they really start allocating towards more blue chip assets. A lot of people, they say they become Bitcoiners after a while. But it's really more than just Bitcoin. Litecoin also is receiving a lot of interest from these mature investors. And so what we found as we started talking to people from all around the different camps, hard money camp, degens, innovators, institutions, digital asset treasuries, all the categories in Web3, we found that 76% of people preferred to spend and save in hard money versus stables. And then taking a step further, 71% in a different poll prefer to spend and save the native asset versus wrapped assets. So what we found out is that, sure, there's a lot of people building for stable coins and wrapped assets, but people prefer the majority of people, when you really dive into how they spend and save, they prefer these, Litecoin, Bitcoin, hard money, but more specifically, the native asset. And these individuals need a way to trustlessly interact with Web3 because there isn't any options available currently to do that in a trustless manner. So not only are like basically, you could say retail, it has like a big need for this solution, but it's also, like I was saying, all these other entities that are getting in, like the institutions, digital asset treasuries, governments and funds, they're all looking for this type of technology. So we're basically building for everyone across all of these groups.
It's interesting about the stable coins. I'm not here to ban them, right? I've used them, and sometimes, we have crypto merchants taking only stables in some cases. And I understand that. But I like that people, per your research, still prefer the actual cryptocurrencies that are independent of fiat, regardless of the variety of fiat, right? US dollars, yen, whatever, that they're actually using Litecoin or Bitcoin or, whatever they're choosing. They're actually using, cryptocurrencies that are non-government. I think that's encouraging. And I'm not saying that stable coins are government. That maybe shouldn't have framed it that way, because they are private. Although I think, and I think you alluded to this earlier when you said you had some concerns or something, that, CBDCs and things will look a lot like stable coins and they might be a gateway to something like that. And I have my reservations, of course, about those too. But I like that people still, whether they can take a digital dollar, private or not, non-government or not, their digital dollar versus the Litecoin, for example, that they're preferring to spend with Litecoin. And of course, when we look at BitPay, as you know, preaching to the choir here, they've been leading. Litecoin's been leading, and it's been taking a lot of share from Bitcoin, which initially created the app and led the app for many years. So I think that's encouraging. I didn't know that. I just want to read a little kind of excerpt here. This is from page 5. It says, the digital assets that are securing allocations on institutional balance sheets, corporate treasuries, and strategic reserves are in fact legacy coins, right? The long-timers have accompanied Bitcoin on much of its journey. Labeled dino coins by the crypto bro conglomerate, legacy coins have endured brutal bear markets, suffocating regulatory classifications, and grassroots FUD campaigns. And then you add, much to the chagrin of the now 30-something-year-old millennial, the next big opportunity might not come from looking forward, but from looking backward. Not from foresight, but from experience. Not from predicting the future, but from having lived the past. For the first time, crypto's next major growth wave may belong to those who remember the legacy coins of old that slipped through the cracks. So that's a pretty big statement. You've already touched on it a little bit, but is there anything else you wanted to add about kind of going back? That's actually really encouraging, the kind of the return to the first things, because I look at the space today and say, where have we gone? I was with Ron Paul and learned about Bitcoin and, silver and gold and all these old things, these kind of Austrian economics type of things. And that's where, for me, the space was born. And I think a lot can agree with me on that. I think that was a really big cohort within the early crypto folks. But basically, I feel sometimes watching conferences, content on X, wherever the crypto folks gather, sometimes we don't see any of that left. So this is almost a return to the first principles. Like, we created sound money, we forgot about sound money, but we're going to have to return to sound money, right? So is that kind of what you're describing, or just unpack that for us? Like returning back to the old things is actually the way forward.
Wow, it's a really deep question. I guess the way we can unpack that is that the next 100x, real 100x, because there's tokens out there that 100x, but there's no real liquidity. So is that really 100x? It's not. But the next real investment in the next 100x is these trusted assets. And to your points, we are returning to a lot of these founding principles. You look at how privacy was so important, in the beginning, and there was a bit of a misnomer with that, with Bitcoin and everything, the true, it's just the pseudonymity and all that. But privacy is, because the technology has matured, becoming a bigger deal. And these blue chip assets, because the technology is maturing in a way that people can use, very shortly, these assets in a trustless manner that wasn't available in different types of solutions that are now available, like DeFi. DeFi wasn't around back when I first got in 2016. Because the space has basically matured and new technology, the new innovation has happened. Now people are trying to figure out what is going to be the assets that really are the stars in this new financial system, this decentralized system. And yes, there's the whole stable coin side of things and some of the kind of weird things that institutions are trying to do with these technologies as well. But as you look at the community at large, people come to this decentralized movement because they're trying to escape, dying fiat, and they're looking for something better. And so as they either come to the decentralized world because they're already looking for that, or they mature, from first buying monkey JPEGs or some meme coin and then try to preserve their wealth. However they get to that point, a lot of people do, and they realize that these blue chip assets are necessary and are going to be the next 100x, the next assets that really grow from the bulk of the money that's about to flow in. And even if you look at something that I say often is that Litecoin is going to be heavily used in the agentic world. So these AI agents that are coming out that are going to be able to do all kinds of DeFi things for people, basically just makes DeFi easy. You just interface with an AI agent instead of needing to know, what wallet and how to connect to this solution. And did I, did I do the right leverage trade or whatever? Did I use the right, parameters on some DeFi solution? You just say, to the agent, essentially, this is what I want, and it'll provide various, strategies for you. But I believe that Litecoin in this agentic world, especially once LitVM is out and these agents can run on top of LitVM, these agents are going to choose Litecoin, hard money, over stable coins. And a big reason why is because you can build more robust strategies with volatility, and you don't get that from a stable coin. And also, these agents are going to know that they can't trust all these some of the stable coins that are out there, or different solutions. So they're going to look for decentralized or trustless solutions, and they're also going to benefit from the volatility of hard money like Litecoin. So I believe that essentially, not only everyone that I've talked about, all these entities and retail, these big players that are coming in, but this whole other new innovative category that's coming in, which is AI, is also going to choose hard money. So we're all kind of coming back to first principles, and that really is the case because the technology has matured and enabled us to focus on the real money and the real tech, at the end of the story here.
In your paper, you describe kind of 4 attributes here that you kind of looked at: integrity, unique utility, technology, and resilience. So what did you find looking at Litecoin with those 4 kind of categories?
Basically, everything except tech was definitely up and to the right. If you look at all the charts, Litecoin is only becoming more decentralized. It's being used more and more. Adoption is growing more and more from many different types of angles, whether that's the different types of payment providers that are holding more Litecoin after participants are transacting in it, instead of converting it back to fiat. They're holding it on their balance sheet. Basically that, and then also just the robustness of the network. Litecoin's been around for over 14 years now. Happy birthday to Litecoin.
Happy birthday, Litecoin.
Yes, we just recently celebrated 14 years, and that's 14 years of 100% uptime. There really isn't anything significant out there that can claim that, not even Bitcoin. Not 100%. It is like 99.9 something, but Litecoin as a network, as a community, as a group of builders that are supporting the ecosystem, that the miners, it's all very robust and continues to grow. And then from a tech perspective, what we're leaning on there is that there is a lot of great technology that has been built specifically for Litecoin, so that it just helps extend its usefulness, whether those are wallets, again, like the payment providers. But we're also kind of projecting into the future with our the way we identify Litecoin as being so important, using this model, because we're building LitVM that will add programmability, which is going to add tons of demand for Litecoin and all kinds of new innovation and solutions.
We've already, as your paper states on page 14, and I remember when the community was discussing this, but as of this year, Litecoin has had 300 million lifetime transactions. So that's only going to grow. And that's a lot of monetary movement. And as your paper defines and, reminds us, Litecoin is a very non-arbitrary monetary system with its own monetary policy. There will never be more than 84 million, right? And it is hard money. It is absolutely hard money. It is digital silver. And of course, Charlie set up that analogy before anybody. I mean, he wrote the Litecoin, a light version of Bitcoin, launched on Bitcoin Talk. And in that, he described Litecoin as digital silver, the silver to Bitcoin's gold. So he also confirmed Bitcoin as gold before anybody else, as far as I know, was talking about it. Because everybody calls Bitcoin digital gold as of the past, 4 or 5 years. So that prophecy has been manifested. It's come to be. And Litecoin's the same. Sorry, Casper. Litecoin is digital silver. Man, those people are going hard lately. I saw Flippy's video and I loved it because they're really relentless. But hey, it's a wide world. But really good paper.
Shout out to Flipper, man, and his skits. Those are so funny.
Here. I like that you mentioned the node count in here. You found there are more than 7,000 Litecoin nodes. Where did you find that data? Because on Blockchair, it always is like 1,200. And I know that there's more than that. I talked to Lotion about that when he was on the show. How did you aggregate the different kind of node counts, if you can share that with us?
I'd have to say that one was definitely Alex.
Okay.
And so we have been working with some developers that have helped us with some of our research. And they helped us source some of the information. But on that specific metric, that was Alex.
Okay. Well, give a shout out to Alex on that one. I personally appreciated that. It seems much more reasonable than the other sources that I consult in the different buckets online. But this paper, of course, can be found where?
Sure. So it's on our website, litvm.com. So litvm.com. In the top right-hand corner of the website, it says learn more, and you can click that, and then it says the silver standard. And it's a free report. We'll have more reports. I'm actually working on a new paper that I think a lot of Litecoiners are actually really going to find this one interesting, because I worked with a developer. So one of the developers we're working with, his name is Web3 Dopamine. He works with the Litecoin Foundation on various things. He's also the main dev for Transaction City, if I'm remembering the website properly. It's the website where you can see live
Transaction Street.
Transaction Street.
Oh, that's awesome, man. That's like an OG site. We love that.
Yeah, definitely OG site. He took it over and he's made some improvements to it, but essentially we're working with him, and he pulled up the Litecoin demographic by geography. And this is going to be really interesting because it shows us where we need to work on, the different things that we can grow from like a community standpoint. It's also helps us like build out various strategies. Like, for instance, if you're building some type of solution and you want to do marketing, better understanding your demographic is really a fundamental piece of information. So we'll be sharing that, and in this report, it'll have that information in addition to further expanding on how we think Litecoin and LitVM will be future-proofed. And we're building that into the Ethereum enterprise, or the Ethereum Foundation's thesis as well for the future of blockchain. So the next paper is also going to be really interesting, and shout out to Web3 Dopamine and all the other developers that are helping us with the research that we're putting into these papers.
That's awesome. It's exciting. Love to hear about that. Keep the drips coming. It's a great campaign. And I kind of have to laugh. Today I was looking at metrics for the podcast, and we had to send a message to the governor of Mississippi because I say that in jest, but I did tweet at him. Just that's the only state that we haven't had a single listener. Speaking of demographics, we have the whole U.S. green except for Mississippi. So maybe somebody in this episode with Aztec, maybe we'll get a Mississippian tune in. I don't want a VPN. I want real Mississippi. Got to have real Mississippi here. But that's really great. Anything you wanted to add about the paper before I kind of go into just a few of your tweets? I can't end the show without going into some of your tweets.
No, I would just say, the biggest question we get is why Litecoin? And these are generally from people in the Web3 camp. So I like to say there's all these camps. There's the hard money camp, there's the degen camp, there's the XRP, flip the switch 589 camp, there's the DeFi camp, the degens, and so and some of the camps to the periphery of hard money, we get this question a lot, and so that's really answered. If you're wondering why Litecoin, then these pages really help kind of explain why, and if we're right, which I've been right about a lot of big moves in the market and innovation. If I'm right again, this could be the next 100x and a real 100x for people to get involved with. If you missed Bitcoin, if you're asking why Litecoin, this is the paper to read. It is 18 pages, so I understand if people just read parts of it, but it's definitely going to answer some questions for those people.
Yeah, I enjoyed reading it. I did read all 18 pages. I did consult the references in the back too. So some of us are motivated. Get out there and read it, download it. I'll link it in the show notes too. So that's actually one of your tweets. You talked about this 100x in terms of the agentic future. You just mentioned it again. So it sounds like you're giving us a ballpark of where you think Litecoin might go. I always say I let my guests talk about price, charts, projections. I don't do it, but y'all can do it as much as you want. I enjoy entertaining it. So where do you think Litecoin's going?
Definitely. If we could do napkin map, recently I said Bitcoin to $1 million, Litecoin to $10,000. The way I got to that is that it's not just me. There's a ton of really smart individuals, way smarter than me, on the macro and the investing side of things, and projecting, price predictions and stuff. And a lot of these individuals, and I think we all know, Bitcoin is definitely going to $1 million. And so napkin math, that's roughly $10 trillion market cap if we're looking at the next 5 years. And I believe conservatively, especially with the entities that are getting involved with the space, and a lot of these guys are going to look for higher beta plays, or not just Bitcoin plays, strategies. A lot of money is going to flow into Litecoin, whether that is some type of ETP or index or innovative demand from different types of trustless solutions. Whatever it is, a lot of money is going to flow in from these big players that are preparing to open the floodgates of capital, and essentially. As this money flows in, it's, I think, conservative number to say that Litecoin can get to 1/10 of that, at $1 trillion market cap, and so that's roughly a little over $10,000 or around $10,000. So that's basically, if we're doing napkin math and just making projections, because I'm not really like there's I'm not usually also someone that does price predictions. Every once in a while when I make a couple, but that's how I came to the $10,000 for Litecoin, over the next 5 years. Um, and I think it's pretty conservative.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to kind of quantify it too. You had another tweet saying Litecoin will have exponential growth between now, and this is within the past few days to a week, and the end of 2026, the end of next year. So what do you see happening between here and now, other than the launch of LitVM? Of course, that's going to be a big part of this.
Definitely. So between now and 2026, LitVM will come online, of course, and that will add a lot of demand for Litecoin. But uh, it there's a bit that I get to see that not everyone gets to see, and because I'm building LitVM, I'm speaking to people that are building for Litecoin or gearing up to build. I'm speaking to institutions that are gearing up to launch different types of ETPs, and a lot of these individuals want to build strategies on top of LitVM. And so I have a kind of a unique opportunity where I get to speak to these awesome people, and I realize that there is a lot more institutions and digital asset treasuries and funds that people don't know about that are actually gearing up to buy Litecoin and stack it. And so over the next year, because digital asset treasuries are only getting hotter, and people are these entities are building different types of strategies more and more, that there's going to be a heavy influx from these institutions, or especially as regulatory clarity and all this comes online. I think over the next year that we're going to see a large price appreciation from all of this capital that flows into the space. And again, just like the paper says, I think the legacy coins are going to be the main coins that receive all this all these inflows, but specifically Litecoin I think has the most upside. So from now to 2026, which is also, I actually think the bull run extends into mid 2026 or late 2026. You usually get a blow off top, and so you're gonna see all this money flowing in, and Litecoin appreciating and benefiting from the new innovation and the inflows of capital. That's what I see over the next year that into 2026.
And of course, we're looking at halted ETFs due to a government shutdown because they were at the final deadline. We have a handful of them. Canary leads with the Canary Litecoin ETF. We had Steve McClurg on this show last year. Actually, pardon me, that was earlier this year. So there's a lot of institutions and, like you said, exchange-traded products, exchange-traded funds that are going to come online. And I don't think it's going to be long. I think it could be any day now. I don't know when the government will open up, and I don't work or know anyone within the SEC. However, you can only kick the can so far, and on its merits, Litecoin is Bitcoin in terms of decentralization and commodity status and everything else. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. Earlier in the episode, you said that kind of it's inevitable to see these institutions coming. I had to accept this too. And part of it is kind of the return to first principles, because these entities are looking for something that is sound, trustworthy, meritable, right? And that actually is a really good thing. I think the space could maybe do well to think of those simple things that started the entire movement, but these are interesting times, interesting topics to discuss, these coming exchanges and just more institutional adoption. I'd be curious to see if you can share anything. You may not be able to. It could be you got agreements to keep your mouth shut, but is there anything you could share with us in terms of what these institutions are saying? Why they're choosing Litecoin?
Definitely because it's something that they can trust. A lot of them are also looking for higher beta play. So over the next year or 5 years, if you think Bitcoin's going to $1 million, it's only a 10x, which is really great in the traditional world. But these institutions have done the research, just like we did a research for this paper, and there's a ton of different, data points there. These guys have probably done even more than myself, and they know that they need something that they can trust, something that they can put in front of uh, their boards, and vote and vote it in, and their investors, and they're not going to choose some type of less trusted degen type project or um, investment, because these guys come from a very prestigious, they have their reputations on the line. So they're choosing Litecoin because it has uh, all these growing metrics, and it's a safer bet. If you're looking for a higher beta play than Bitcoin, um, and also I have talked to some of these individuals, and they also see that there's a lot of innovation. If you look at a lot of the legacy coins, Bitcoin definitely has a lot of innovative mind share. But other than that, a lot of the legacy coins are what they are. There's not a whole lot building around them. Um, and so I have also seen that some of these guys are interested in what's being built on top of Litecoin. Uh, so it's kind of a cross between it being something that they see as safe, for all the reasons I said, and then also excited about the innovation that's building around Litecoin.
It's good. Pardon me. That's really good. I'm going to credit you with some language that you injected into the Litecoin community, which I really, really like. And that is called the Litecoin meta. You have Why Litecoin or Earn Not Gifted talking about the perfect substitute, the Bitcoin substitute. You have Indigo talking about Nakamotoism. And we have this language that sort of sticks. And you're constantly talking about the Litecoin meta. Tell us about the Litecoin meta.
Definitely. Litecoin meta is extremely exciting. It's a bit of everything I've been talking about with you, Kyle. The institutions coming online, they're gearing up to launch different types of ETPs. There's, the indexes and the ETFs, and then you have the digital asset treasuries that are onboarding into Litecoin and buying more and more Litecoin, and digital asset treasuries that haven't even announced. You also have different funds that are also looking at Litecoin, and you have all these wallets that are building for Litecoin, and the payment providers that are starting to receive higher and higher metrics for usage of Litecoin. You have the community. It's almost it's almost like cult like in a way, but it is really such a friendly, open community. I I love the community because if you're looking at like the different hard money communities, a lot of people look at Bitcoin, and there's the Bitcoin maxis, and some of these guys can be real nasty, and they're not really like open minded, to like innovation. So what I love about the Litecoin community, which is continuing to grow as well, is that they're friendly, open minded. They have great memes, great culture. So it's the Litecoin meta is also becoming part of the social fabric of all blockchain, and the community is championing and growing, and all of what I'm talking about here today. And so the Litecoin meta is all these things and the growth of these things, and it's definitely kind of taking over. There's a lot of people, even outside of the hard money camp, from all the different angles of blockchain. They're asking about Litecoin, or they're wanting to learn more about it because they're seeing so much projects and innovation and people talking about it, and so that's basically the phenomenon, the Litecoin meta.
I like the language. I think it's important language, and it sticks, and it rolls, and it's shared, and it just keeps going. So I think it's correct. The Litecoin meta. So you're a big part of that. What you guys are doing at LitVM are a big part of that. I thank you for what you're building. It's been a pleasure having you. Seriously, I enjoyed this. It's been nice seeing you in the private rooms too. And God willing, we see you again in, well, I imagine it's going to be Vegas, but a few months away now. But before we end the show, how do you want to kind of land the plane or end? What are your the final words for you on the show?
Final words is something that I really believe strongly in, and that's that we're all in this together. And I love that so many of us in the Litecoin community support each other, and I believe really strongly in everyone supporting everyone, even if you're a competitor in this space. We're still early, and we have to support each other. And being that we're all in this together, if we all support each other and grow together, we're going to win together. And what I see, for the future is, blockchain can be used for some really crappy things, or we can all really, grow together and reach other people together, build really innovative stuff together. And the future of blockchain can be something that, people look back at and thank us for instead of it being something that becomes, something evil. So togetherness is really important. And if you're looking for a community that really believes in this, because it's not just me, everyone that I interact with in the Litecoin community is like this. They're all supportive, and this is the place to be. It's not only a place to be because it's the Litecoin meta and there's so much going on, but there's a really great community and people that believe in supporting each other and building together.
Very good. Yeah, let's not be evil. And we are early because the last Litoshi will be mined in 123 years approximately. So you are not too late. There's plenty of time to stack lits or just get them in whole units, because you can still do that. So we don't know how long that will be. The ship has sailed certainly for whole units of Bitcoin for most of us. Well, Aztec, it's great having you. We're going to watch what you're doing. We're going to follow LitVM. Of course, you can follow this guy at _crypto on X. LitVM is on X. Thanks for listening to episode 48 of the 84 Million Podcast. You can find this episode and every other episode on 84million.com/podcast. Follow us on X. Follow us, or I should say subscribe on YouTube. We do appreciate it. And with that being said, Aztec, have a good one. Thanks for coming on the show.
Much love, Kyle. Thank you so much for letting me chop it up with you, hang out. And this is it's an awesome opportunity. Love everything you're doing. I've watched, a ton of your episodes, and you're an awesome guy, man. So shout out to you too. Everyone subscribe to his YouTube channel, support Kyle. You can also support him by going to the 84 Million shop and buying some really cool merch.
That was non-paid and extremely kind. And I will add that the shirt he is wearing was designed by Bits, our friend Bits. I did not design it.
Really good quality.
Thank you for that, Aztec. So that being said, we'll sign off. Aztec, I would love to do it again, and have a good night, man.
Thank you, bro. You too.
Bye-bye.